Hi, I'm Bill Fretz. We're going to be demonstrating how to make a pure silver fluted cuff. And these use various stakes and hammers. And I'm going to be introducing the new M100 series stakes. These stakes form bracelets and anything that's 2-inch diameter and larger. This curve is exactly 2 inches and they all relate with each other. So by forming on one shape, we can then take that shape and flute it. So by using different hammers, we raise the curve, either concave or convex, into a different shape that makes an interesting piece of jewelry. We're going to be using a convex stake and then flute it. And let's get started. We're going to be using 1-inch blank by 6 inches by 18 gauge. It's going to be formed against this stake, which is an M111. It's a dome stake, 2-inch diameter circle. It's being held in an H101, which is versatile because it turns in different directions. I have got this one mounted on with a C-clamp on a block of wood, so it can come and go off your workbench. You can also mount this onto a stump. Another option is to mount it in a vise in this holder with VH101. Either one will work fine, and you can put them in opposite directions. Another option is to mount it permanently on your workbench, and you would put it near a leg because it works a little better. It's more solid, and that's a versatile holder. It doesn't turn, but it doesn't take up a lot of room on your workbench. And any of these solutions will work. It's a really good idea to put reference marks on your piece, and that way it keeps the symmetry as you're raising. So I'm using a little Sharpie, and I'm just putting some lines on. Now this metal has been annealed. Now because it's pure silver, we are not going to anneal again, and it's very malleable in the beginning. Normally, pure silver does not work for jewelry, but if you hammer harden it, it will work really well. Now there are different options for raising. You're going to roll the metal over the stake, and you need an air pocket, and that is critical because you're moving it down to the stake. So the outside circumference is actually going to compress, and the circle or the donut hole is going to get smaller. And we'll start. I'm using the round side and just compressing the metal. Now this will remain round because this curve is round. Now there's another technique you can use which is a little quicker, but it's a little more difficult. But I'll demonstrate that now. You use the heel of the hammer. This is a nylon insert hammer. This is a HMR 107, and they have interchangeable ends. This is the raising end. And by compressing deeper into the piece, you move the metal faster. So. Now the hammer comes down squarely on the piece with the underlying metal stake supporting the shape. The stake dominates the shape, so you will get the shape of the stake as you hammer. Now, if you were using sterling silver, you would have to anneal after this course. But because it's pure silver, it's still malleable. So we're just going to do another raising. And I'm going to move a little deeper into the piece. And then the second course, the piece will conform to the stake. OK, now I'm going to do the other side. OK, there we go. Now, if it's not quite round, you can take a bracelet mandrel, slide it on, true it up. But we now have the curve that's correct for fluting, and we'll start that process now. The fluting process begins with this M113A stake. Now this one on the crest is a little rounded. We'll finish the fluting with the same version, but it's sharper, and that's the 113B. And we can place it in this holder now. Now, when you remove your previous stake, make sure you do not use your good hammer. You're going to use a ball peen or just a hammer to knock it out. But don't use a well-polished hammer. Now, we're going to rotate this piece, and this makes it easier to orient it because I'm going to be fluting sideways. Now, one of the things that's really important is the design process at this time. Because this stake is curved, you can flute slightly with curved lines. So you're trying to make a design that doesn't look like it went through a rolling mill. So take advantage of that and do shapes that you couldn't make with a more mechanized procedure. And each one of these is going to be slightly different. The last fluting area, though, is straight because we're going to cut it open, and you want that to be oriented on your wrist fairly straight. So that flute will keep straight. So I'm going to start at the top, and I'm just going to arbitrarily put some lines on. And you can do slightly curved lines. Because the stake is curved, you can actually hammer around a curve. Now, we have different options for the hammers. They're curved, and we have different sizes. The large hammer is really great if you're using heavy gauge metal. Because this is pure silver and it's really easy to move, we're going to use one of the rounded cross pins. There are two options. One is the 8, and it's sharper. This is the 9. The ends are a little more bulbous. I think I'm going to start with the 9, the smaller end. So you have 4 options on what size to use. The choice is made depending on how wide the sketch is and what kind of texture you want. The sharper the curve, the more detailed the texture. As the curve gets larger, it will be much more muted and rather subtle. So the technique is to hammer the metal down and push the metal down to the stake, but you need an air pocket. The crest of the stake, you don't hammer that, and that will follow the line. So we hammer on either side. Then reverse it. Now, there's a reason for using the rounded crest on this stake, and that's because we can move the flute back and forth, and it forms a track. The next stake will follow that, and it won't mar the inside. If you start with a sharp one, there's a tendency it bounces around, and you score the inside, and it's much better to have it follow this formed flute, and then it's very clean on the inside. And you want the inside to be as pristine as the outside. Now we'll do the next one. Because it's getting detailed, I'm going to flip it over. And the advantages of pure silver is you don't have to worry about fire scale, and it has a really lustrous white quality to it. And it's really malleable. It's really easy to use. All right, all the flutes are now roughed in, but they're roughed in with a roly-poly quality because we used the stake with a rounded crest. We're now going to switch to the sharper stake, and we're going to sharpen all the flutes up. And we're going to remove it. Now I've reoriented the T-stake so it's facing sideways, and I'm going to be using the shallower or less extreme curve on this stake. This stake actually has 2 angles. One will give you a shallow flute, and the other will give you a more extreme flute. And we're going for the shallow flute. All right. You're going to hammer lighter, and you're going to hammer closer to the crest or the line, and the whole design will sharpen up and become more pristine. Now you have different options. You can rotate back and forth from each flute, or you can go all the way around on one side. It really doesn't matter. The concept is not to hit the top, though. You're trying to bring the metal to a point. Now the curved quality of the stake lets you go around a subtle curve. It won't do an extreme curve, but it does make it look less mechanical. And it's a shape that's kind of pretty when it's finished. Now the middle section, or the valley of the flute, you're actually planishing flat against the curve of this. There is a curve, but it's a flat area. And that's how you get the middle section. You continue around the piece, and you're shooting for the illusion of really sharpness without actually making it a really sharp edge. And that's part of the charm of it, is that it glimmers with the planish marks, and it shows that it's hand wrought. This is our finished piece. We oriented the stake with the T-stake, and you got flutes going across the piece. By rotating the stake, you can change the direction of the flutes, and it changes the flavor of the piece dramatically. You can also run one flute through the piece on a domed bracelet, and it's an accent rather than the whole design. You can also do it on a wide piece and make the flutes curved, and it's very dramatic and really quite different. So each one has its own flavor and technique, but they're all technically the same process. Thank you for watching, and I hope this was informative. If you'd like more information, go to riogrande.com or call the tech team at Rio Grande, and they'll be happy to help you with the tool selection for the project that you have in mind.